Heyo everybody, Haku here with a quick video, hopefully quick. You know, when I say quick, it may not end up being that way, but a video to talk about the new Urek Mazino spinoff for Tower of God. And before I even get into this, don't spoil me, because I haven't actually read it yet. I'm waiting for the official translation to come out so that I can share my journey through it with you all here on the channel. So I'm waiting for the official translation, just like I did for the main series. I just wanted to give some thoughts and kind of an update about it. I know a lot of you probably already know because you follow other Tower of God sources, but just in case you didn't, we finally got our announcement for the Tower of God spinoff. It's going to be a Urek Mazino spinoff, and they dropped 6 chapters at once in Korean. And that's going to be kind of a big thing that I'm talking about here. When it comes to the actual content of it, at first I was like learning it was Urek, I was like, okay, not what a lot of people were predicting, not what I would have predicted, not what I thought was coming whatsoever. You know, maybe 10 family stuff. But it's kind of good after we've gotten so much of the 10 family stuff recently in the main story. I think it's good to keep the rest of that to the main story. This way we don't have to worry about, you know, unveiling things kind of early here. And seeing it here instead of the main story. Same thing with seeing the regulars, Wang Nan and his team, or maybe even Shibisu's team, just some of Bomb's allies. That would have been a nice thing to do, but I'm cool with not doing that, especially if we get back to that in the main story, if that's something we're doing in the main story. And I do like the idea of doing the Urek stuff, because though I always wanted to see, like, the Walhike song, Urek, and Baekryun, while I wanted to see those flashbacks in the main story, if we got them in the main story, they'd maybe be a few chapters, kind of like a lot of the Tromre backstory stuff. Whereas with this, if we're fleshing out Urek's backstory into a full like side story for Tower of God, we can really see it in detail. So if anything, it's just giving me something I wanted to see anyway, and something that would have been short if we got to see it in the main story, and we're giving it some real detail, so I think that's a good thing. So when it comes to also, you know, Siu mentioned when he was like going off on the hiatus that there'd be updates to the art style. The only art I've seen is like the promotional art for it, and all I've heard about it is like what we were being told through the description or whatever when it was announced, and it looks really good. So when it comes to the story, another thing with the story, with the announcements we got and advertisement and everything, there's a mention that we could get more information on Phantominium, which is something that who knows how deeply I thought we might ever get into in the main story. So to me, this is really exciting. I am very excited for the story and art. What I'm not excited for is everything else surrounding that. And that's mainly what I'm going to yap about here for a minute. As far as I know, from looking it up recently, like I said, 6 chapters have already dropped in Korean, and there is still no word on an English translation, and even if an English translation starts tomorrow, I still think it's bad. I think this is something I've been saying for years, an incredibly stupid way to run a business, and I don't think you need a business degree to see this stuff. So from the very first time, years and years ago, that FastPass was announced, and I don't want to say just me, because many others as well, were saying, oh, so this is going to create a divide within people reading Tower of God, where people who are reading officially, reading the free sort of, not even just translation, but reading free in general, because translations weren't behind at first, it's like, oh, it's going to create this divide. People who are reading the free release are going to be afraid to go to certain Tower of God spaces so that they don't get spoiled. And the people who are reading ahead generally aren't going to want to spoil people, but they want to talk about Tower of God as well. So it's going to create this divide where instead of everybody talking freely about it, there are people who don't want to talk about it in certain places because they don't want to spoil people, or they can't spoil people, or they'll get banned. And there are going to be people who can't talk about it because they're afraid of getting spoiled. And you know, I won't say that, you know, anybody's a genius for predicting the most obvious thing ever, But yeah, that's happened for like 6 years, and it's been bad. And then it got even worse because before it's like, okay, the translation wasn't behind, so people are just behind the FastPass, and that kind of makes sense. FastPass to a certain degree can make sense when it comes to trying to make extra money for the creators. So let's say you get 1 week or 2 weeks ahead of time. That's not going to cause a huge rift in a community, maybe a little bit. And there are people who are going to want to spend money to read ahead without, going through everything to find some sort of scanlation to read for free. There are going to be people who pirate it always, but, you can get a little bit of money. But there's a limit to that. When you're too far ahead, people are just going to pirate. They're not going to bother with FastPass. And especially if we're talking about the translated version being behind even the free Korean version. At that point, there's basically going to be nobody who is going to give you money to read and still be behind others. You're not going to make any money off of FastPass that way. In fact, I would wonder if FastPass has lost more money driving people to piracy rather than reading the official than it's made money through people actually paying for it. Because we've seen time and time again, all of these people that tried to stay with the official who caved and were like, okay, I gotta read ahead. Things are looking really good. All of these people, they didn't look around and say, where's my wallet? Let me break out the credit card. They went to a scan site. They did not pay money. So, it's very clear that this is not working. And again, this is not something I think you need any sort of business experience to get. This is very, very obvious that people aren't going to pay you to be behind something they can have for free. It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever to be too far ahead on FastPass and to be too far behind on translation. I don't think it's something that maybe even the Western release, the English release, can do anything about. Because let's say Naver publishes it in Korean and Naver's like, you have to wait a while before you publish in English. Then the people publishing in English, there's not much they can do about it. But it's a really stupid business decision. It's really dumb. I don't get it. So for all of you, there are plenty of Webtoons content creators who have said, oh, I'm a Webtoons partner or whatever. I never have been, and after this video, I maybe never will, because I just think that this is the height of bad business decisions. You are driving people to piracy sites. And it's not even like, personally, I think that the official translation pre-anime season 1 for Tower of God used to be absolutely abysmal. It was an absolute joke of a translation to be official. But after the anime came out, season 1, they redid it, and things got a lot better. It's still not perfect, certainly, but it's gotten much, much better. But even then, there's still people almost every week in my comments when I cover Tower of God stuff that are like, you really need to read the unofficial. It's such a better translation. Meanwhile, I watch, not only do I, if anybody's been following the channel, not only do I cover the chapter myself, I watch like at least a half dozen other Tower of God content creators. I watch their stuff, including their stuff where they cover the scanlations. And so it's like people are like, oh, this is a much better translation. Look at the other translation, barely comprehensible. But even though I think that the official translation's a better translation, that's my opinion, and other people don't share it. Other people think there's a better translation 3 months ahead for free. They're not giving you money for the official translation when you're this far behind. It's so comically bad decision making. I just don't get it. And then comes the bad decision making from, I think, the Korean side as well, being 5 weeks ahead. Again, with it not being a translation and with you not paying to still be behind like you are in English, you would think there are more people who would go for the FastPass in Korean. That just makes more sense. So I wonder if they have as much of a problem with piracy, since it does make more sense. But when you're far enough ahead, that's still kind of bad. But either way, I think dropping 6 chapters at once is the absolute height of stupidity as well. I think it's probably not CU's decision, but even if it is CU's decision, a good editor, a good publisher would be like, yeah, sorry, bud, you're not publishing 6 chapters at once. You're doing it one at a time. If you wanted to be 5 weeks ahead, because right now they have 1 official chapter and then 5 weeks of Fast Pass. If you wanted to do that, it's like, you're going to drop the Fast Pass chapter, and then people who want to read 5 weeks ahead, that could drive money. People would want to read 5 weeks ahead. They don't want to wait 5 weeks for this. And then drop another Fast Pass, drop another Fast Pass. And then after 5 weeks, it's like, okay, the first one hits official. That might actually drive money. Maybe. But when you're dropping it all at once, I just don't think there's as much excitement. But the big problem is we see webtoon creators all the time talking about how much the schedule is hard on them, how tough the schedule is, and it's really tough. Can you imagine making a chapter of Tower of God every single week? That's an insane schedule. And yet, instead of having 5 chapters in the bank, 5 weeks in the bank, if something happens to you or one of your assistants, maybe somebody's sick, maybe there's a family emergency, maybe you're just running behind and need a little bit more time, instead of having those 5 weeks of buffer because you don't get like a break week every month or anything, instead of having those 5 buffer weeks, you've just screwed yourself out of 5 weeks of time and money. I just really do not understand dropping 6 at once and putting yourself in a tougher situation when it comes to time crunch. If it's not CU's decision, this is a terrible way to treat your creators, and if it is CU's decision, it still goes back on the publisher in my opinion, because they should tell CU, no, you're dropping these one at a time. And giving yourself time if there is an emergency. It just feels like so many bad business decisions. So I'm going to stop rambling and ranting. There's probably even more I wanted to say, but the short story is I am excited for the Too Long Didn't Watch here at the end, if you did watch, I am excited for the story and the art, but I'm not excited for the fan base still being split so far, and for them to drop 5 chapters at once, which means like that's less time. Like, we haven't even been on break that long, so CU and his team to have produced 6 chapters can't have had that much of a break really, and you can't imagine they're too far ahead. Like, they would have had to have taken no break at all to be ahead still. It just feels like terrible business decision. So I'm excited for the story and the art, but I'm not excited for all the things surrounding it, for the sort of rush that it seems like the creators have to go through, for the split that the fan base is going to have to go through, and for all of the wasted money of putting out your translation and putting out your Fast Pass so late that nobody in their right mind is going to be paying for it unless they really want to support the creator. And again, if you were actually business minded, there are probably so many better ways to do that. Let's say instead of doing Fast Pass, or maybe in addition to doing like a 1 or 2 week Fast Pass, because I think a 1 or 2 week Fast Pass is like the perfect distance to not completely mess up the community, to keep people talking about the series, and to have people be like, well, I don't want to bother with, scanlations that aren't the highest quality most of the time, going to a different site when I could just stay on Webtoons. I can pay a little bit to read ahead, but when you go too much further than that ahead, that's going to drive people to piracy, because they're not gonna wait that long or pay to still be behind. So I think having a short Fast Pass, but on top of that, imagine if you did, and there are probably plenty of sites that do this, I don't know the details of Pixiv, Fanbox, those types of sites. I don't really use any of those, but let's say that Webtoons itself had an official sort of Patreon type thing at the side where at any point you could donate to the project. and they had a tracker at the side. And I could imagine there could be, it's like, oh, you choose to, if you want to support Tower of God for $1 a month, or choose to support Tower of God for $5 a month, or even for $20 a month, leave it open to fans. And you could have this counter at the side where you can see that fans are supporting like maybe $20,000 to $40,000 a month for Tower of God. It might end up even being more than that for people dropping some money here and there. You could have crowdfunding at the like side panel of your webtoon itself, and I think that that would probably drive more money than FastPass. In fact, FastPass, again, like I mentioned, is probably driving people away from Webtoons itself to other sites for the scanlations. It just seems like there's so many, if you want to make money for the creator, so many better ways to do it. Or have a maybe super chat or super thanks type system where you would obviously have to have rules to be like, okay, no advertisements, no self-promotion for this. But imagine you could be like, okay, $5 with my comment to make my comment sort of pinned up at the top. And you would have to, you know, have to go through all the paid pin comments. But again, if you had rules on the paid pin comments, like no self-promotion or anything, then I think that's perfectly fine. It's a good way for fans to post their comments up at the top with support for the author saying, hey, this is what I liked, this is what I thought. Again, both of those ways, I think, you know, give me money and I'll help you out, Webtoons. I think both of those ways are a much better way to drive money. And of course, if the publisher's taking a cut of it, a better way to drive money to the creator and to the publisher than to do FastPass. FastPass just has so many downsides, and if done right, those downsides can be kind of mitigated, but it's just being done so poorly. The execution is being done so bad. I am sorry because I thought this would be a short video, but I just ended up rambling. It is just being handled so poorly. I'm gonna end things here. Like I said, I'll be back. I'll do reactions whenever it starts coming out with an official English translation. We'll probably be 3 months behind like we were with the main story. I do not get these horrible business decisions. I don't get costing yourself money like that. I said it when the official translation was coming out. Being that far behind on your translation, again, this might not be something that the, you know, Western Webtoons part of the company can do anything about. It might be more on Naver, but even then, that's Naver shooting itself in the foot. I just don't understand making business decisions this poorly. I really don't get it. When it seems like, again, I, a completely unqualified nobody, just listed off much better ideas that I think would drive much more money given similar, you know, similar things elsewhere. I just don't get it. But either way, I'll end things here. Let me bring up the patron thing. Like if you did like the video, comment down there. Tell me what you're thinking. Please don't spoil me once again, because I am really excited to see what the story is going to be. You know, at first I was like, Urek, not what I was hoping for in comparison to wanting to see the regulars and stuff. But then after hearing just Phantominium mentioned whatsoever in the description and advertisement and stuff like that, I was like, okay, if we're really getting Urek's journey and we're getting it fleshed out instead of just being shoved in a couple chapters in the main story, then to me that's very exciting. So can't wait for that. Don't spoil me, but I will be back for it when I can be back for it. Like, comment, subscribe, follow on Twitter if you want. If you want a link to the Discord server, it's free and open for anyone. If you would like to help support the channel by sharing the video around or by dropping a super thanks, both are appreciated. And if you'd like to help support the channel, get One Piece videos a little bit early and get your name here at the end of videos, you can hit join down below to become a channel member, or go to patreon.com/HakuOfTheTubes, or a link will be in the description to become a patron. Thank you so much to people who are already patrons and channel members. Thank you to chosen regulars Evan Hawley and Bertie Wooster, to Magical Girls, FR Nono, JA, and the D-Man, to Cheriton students David Langstaff and Folded Gold, to Slayer candidates SG and Stance Eater, and to Pure Elements, Bade Ariel, and Elsa the Storyteller. It's like 90 degrees today, so it's toasty in here even with the AC on. I thank you for sticking through my mad ramblings for nearly 20 minutes of recording time. Thank you, and I'll see you all. I hope I mentioned everybody. You know, I forgot what I just said literally. Thank you all, and I'll see you all next time.